Hi everyone, this is Gloria from Stamp with Gloria. Today I'm going to show you a workshop that you can do with the Just Saying set. How to get 4 different looks out of one stamp set. There'll be a couple of things that I'll go through just to kind of give you an idea on how to do it. But I won't complete each card, but I will show you the finished version of it. One of the things we're going to use is the watercolor Wonder Design note cards. They're really cool card packet that we've got in the new mini catalog, and it's actual watercolor paper with watercolor backgrounds. We've got one that's pre-printed with some flowers on and some polka dots. We've got an oval with the yellow background. We've got just the plain polka dots with pops of yellow and pink. We've got the zigzag one. I did use a folder already on here so that I gave it some texture, and that is one of the celebration free items that you can get in the celebration flyer. And then the last note card is a watercolor in green. So I'm going to show you how to do 4 cards. I'm not going to use this particular card here, so I'm going to just set that one aside. But the other 4, I'm going to show you how to make the different cards using the same set, and we're going to start out with the easiest one, and I'm going to give you some tips and things that you can do along the way. So the easiest one is using the little hedgehog here. Your How Old, he's just the cutest little thing, and you're going to get your Life in the Forest set. Open it up if you're strong. There we go. And there he is. I used the Stays On pad because I was going to use the watercolor markers right on top of most of the images, and I didn't want them to smear. This is the most simple card to do, and we're just going to start out by stamping the little hedgehog on the bottom of the card here. It'd be great if I would have got his whole face, but I can fix it. So we're going to stamp him out, and then I'm just going to color him in with Sierra Sand. I didn't want him really gray. I wanted him a little bit lighter color so that, you know, gray would have been just too harsh looking. So I'm just going to, you know, hit his little quills, and then I'm going to take some Blushing Bride. And oops, no, I'm not going to take the Blushing Bride. I'm going to take the Going Gray, or the Basic Gray is what we call it now. Used to call it Going Gray. And I'm going to hit his head with it. And then, because I kind of messed him up a bit, we're going to take the black marker. And this is a good versatile way to show people, you know, how you can fix things if you accidentally mess something up, or if you want more definition. So I just fixed his head there. He's got a cute little nose on the end there. And then I'm going to take a Soft Sky and just hit the bottom of it just to give him a little bit of shadow. Okay, there we go. So there he is walking along. Remember, when we stamp things on cards, we don't want our images floating in air somewhere. We need to anchor them somewhere. And then I would just stamp the How Old Are You balloon and punch it out, and that card is complete. So fast, easy, fun. Okay, so that's our first card. Our second card, we're going to take this one right here, and I'm going to show you a couple of little tips. We're going to do some paper piercing. Okay, so this is what the actual card looks like. You got your little fox there, and your little your mousie's standing on top, and yes, you're going to cut out the mouse. That's okay. It's only one project, and your customers will be okay. All right. So I was looking at this card, and I thought, oh, I want a little more texture. I want a little more fun, a little more pop in the background. So I picked up these colors on the bottom here, and I just embossed it with our free embossing folder in the celebration with a $50 order. And I picked out the same colors that are in the bottom here, and I just hit the bubbles on the side just a little bit. So you just take and randomly with the brush marker end, hit the dots to give it some kind of fun, funky little background thing going on. I was actually thinking about the Northern Lights. These aren't quite the colors for the Northern Lights, but I thought it would be kind of fun if we did something like that. So, you know, there'd be some interest in the background of the card. So you basically can see how that is done. So when I hit the background with the color and stuff, I was thinking if it's Northern Lights, it should be getting twilight or a little bit dark. So that's why I used the darker blue and the little bit darker green on the bottom here. Then to make the grass, we need a scissors, and I'm going to just take my scissors and I'm going to cut just a little wave here across the bottom, and then I'm going to flip it around because I want the circle to match, and I'm going to cut another wave. That's just to give it 2 layers for the fox to stand in between the middle of, instead of just kind of, you know, flat. And then we're going to take our new fringe scissors and we're going to fringe the bottom of it. And we'll do the same with this little guy here and tuck it up behind, so that gives it some depth. Now, we know grass is not cut at the same length, right? So you're going to just take your scissors and you're going to cut it kind of randomly, some short, some long, so that you have a little bit of texture going on, a little bit of depth. And then I just took one of my markers and I hit the top of it just to give it some more color. Okay, so that's how I made the grass there. All right, now the fox, let me talk about him a little bit. So we're going to paper piece him together, and he starts out looking, we need him on a white piece of paper, and then we're going to cut him out of the red, okay? And I started cutting this guy out just to show you how we can put him together. So he'll be put together up like this. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm cutting him out, and I have another guy that I'm going to paper pierce him together with. And one of the things I wanted to show you about him is when you cut him out, this part is going to be white. So you're going to cut this part of the fox out, right? That makes sense, right? But we're going to leave the nose on the bottom. Then we're going to cut this part of his eyes out. All right. Now, you're like wondering, oh, are his ears going to be kind of funky looking? Well, they're not here because we just take the white and we color in his ears. We're not going to worry about trying to cut out his ears so the white shows through. That's just too stressful on people, so we're just not going to do that. Okay, so we've cut out his eyes. Now, I want to show you something else here. Once you cut him here, okay, you want to just cut across his feet here, and then you're going to cut this out and you'll cut into the feet here. But leave these 2 feet attached, because once you cut out the eye here, and I'll show this to you, if you cut out the eyes and the nose here, then this leg would be cut off, okay? And it would be too hard to piece it back onto your image. So you're going to leave the 2 legs connected, okay? And then you'll just stick it onto your paper, and then like the fox here, all you have to do is you're going to cut out the fox again, but then you're going to cut in between his legs then, so that you don't have to mess with that in the beginning, and he'll fit perfectly. Okay, so that's the tip there. All right, so then once you get them cut and pieced together, you're going to put it all together, cut out your saying, and this is your second card. All right, so let's go on to our third card. That's going to be this guy right here, and we're going to use this background here. Now, this background, how do we get it? Okay, it's actually a pretty simple deal. We're going to take the pine trees, and we're going to take the Stays On pad again, because remember, we don't want any smearing going on when we use the watercolor. So this is the card we're going to make, and we're just going to stamp the tree on here and stamp it here, and then a little over, kind of miss the other tree. There we go. So we've got them all stamped on. Okay, move the Versamark back. And then how do we get that background there? Super, super easy. So you're just going to take one side of the tree, the brush end of the marker, and you're going to color that one side of the tree in the darker green. All right. Voila, done. All right, now we're going to take our Daffodil Delight and we're going to hit the other side with the yellow color. Okay, we didn't have to hit the one side of this tree because we can't see it, so that's fine. So we're just going to hit this side with the yellow color. Boop, boop. You got to make the sounds too, otherwise it won't come out right. All right, so now we've got this going on. So how do I make this sun in the background, and how do I not hit the trees? Okay, you're going to stamp the trees on another piece of paper, okay? And you're gonna make a Post-it note out of it. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but we have something called a two-way glue pen. It's a real versatile glue pen. One of the things that it can do is you just color a piece of paper, or you put glue on a piece of paper, let it dry, and it becomes a mask. You want it to be tacky. You don't want it to be wet, because if it's wet, it's going to glue, like glue two pieces of paper together. That makes sense? Okay, so you want it tacky, and you're going to roll it on there. Now, when you're making these patterns, just take and stick them to the inside of your stamp set. So when you pull out that stamp set again, you have this pattern and you're ready to go. Okay, so now I want to sponge a little sun on there. So what I did is I've masked the trees so I don't have to worry about any of that. And I'm going to take my Daffodil Delight pad and a sponge dauber, and I'm going to sponge the sun or the sunset, whatever you want it to be, on the card. And you want to hit one side of it again, just like the trees, a little bit darker than the other side. Okay? All right, then I looked at it and I'm like, oh, I like it, but I want a little like fuzz going around the outside. You know, I want a little sun rays coming out the outside. I still didn't want to mess with the tree, so you're going to leave that mask on there and then put this guy on, and then I'm just going to make that little sun rays coming out there. All right, so I took it out and there's the sun rays. We didn't mess up these trees at all, and it's coming up behind the trees, so we've got a little dimension going on there. So that's the tips for this card. And then let me just give you a tip on the raccoon. So I taught you how to do the fox. Now the raccoon's a little bit different. Okay, I stamped him on a piece of DSP, but he's a little more complicated in his design. You know, I can't really cut out his eyes and ears, and you know, they're just tiny, tiny little pieces, and I didn't want to deal with that. So I cut out his body, and now I'm going to hit the places with the marker that I want, you know, colored in. So his tail, I'm going to use basic black, and we'll color in his rings. But I didn't want to use basic black on his head, obviously. And then see, there's a little piece on his back here we're going to color in with the black. And then we're going to take the basic gray, and we're going to put in his mask, and so you can still see his eyes, and then we're going to hit his ears. Okay, so that's going to be more gray, and so then he's ready to go. So just a little bit different technique on him. Okay, you're going to cut him out, and I used one of our punches, you know, to punch these out, and we've got our raccoon and our fox in the background. A couple little tips on how to make it. How did I do this grass? Simple, simple. I took a 2-inch piece of paper, I scored to the 1-inch line, and then I used our fringe shears again, cut it all down. Again, I cut pieces of it off because grass is not even in the wild. So you don't want that to happen. I put it down here. I put my little punches on it, my seine, and then I tuck the fox and the raccoon in. Okay, so let me take that away. All right, our last card, last but not least, we're going to use this pretty yellow paper here. This is pretty self-explanatory as far as what you're going to do goes. So we've got our rabbit. It's going to look like this. Miss you already. Cute little card. You could make this Happy Easter card if you want. He looked kind of sad, so I thought a Miss You Already card would be kind of fun. The mushrooms I did stamp on separate white paper, color them in, and then I used our Bright's candy dots to tuck onto the mushrooms, and I put it on with dimensionals so that it pops a little bit. How I got the ground is I took our oval framelit and just cut it in half. It fits perfectly on here. Who knew, right? And again, you're just gonna, ground is not even in the wild, so you want to give it a little wave, a little something something going on. Okay, then you would glue these two together. Okay, tape these two together, and you would use your shears again. Boop. Okay, and then again you would take your scissors. Take your scissors and randomly cut out pieces of the grass because in the wild grass is not even. All right, then we've got our grass. The bunny, let me just talk about the bunny for a second. The bunny is blah. He's just very blah. There's like nothing there. So you do have to hit him up with a little color. So I just took this off Sky and I hit around the edges of him to give him something, you know, to make him more substantial. And then I just hit the inside of his ears with the Blushing Bride to give him a little bit more dimension. Then the trees are on the polka dots, and you just cut out the trees, cut out the rabbit, tuck it in, do the mushrooms, and then put your seine, whatever you'd like on it. Okay, so that's the tip for that one. So when we get it all together, this is what the cards look like. There you go. Oops, not that one. 1, 2, 3, here we go, 4. All right, here are your 4 cards. Kind of a nice, pretty assortment of cards using that watercolor Wonder Designer note cards, so you don't have to cut paper for that or anything. Using a lot of scraps, using some DSP, some markers, and some accessories. I hope you like this class. Come back again and stop by Stamp with Gloria to see what else I'm doing. Have a great day.